Salute fam, I am Sergeant First Class Bennett. I am not Sergeant Major Nelson, as you can tell. He's off doing Sergeant Major-y things. Who knows what he's doing? He's telling somebody to take your hands in your pocket, telling somebody to get off his grass. You know what Sergeant Majors do. He's doing that. Who knows? But I'm here today, your host, and I'm having fun. Come on back. Every good hero needs a theme song. Here's mine. This is Your Army Now.
Coming to you live from the NorCal studios in Sacramento, California, this is Your Army Now.
As I mentioned, Sergeant Major's not here. I am Sergeant Bennett, your host to Your Army Now. So he's not here, so guess what we're doing? It's February. Yes, that's right. It's Black History Month. So we're going to get into it. Let's do it. All right, so first of all, we're in week 2. I wanted to thank all the people that support this show. I want to thank all the recruiters that's out there and soldiers that's out there watching the show and supporting it. But it's great that you watch, and thank you, but you guys don't need this information. This is information about the Army that we need educators to know, students, possible enlistees, educators, everybody, parents. Get this out there. Start sharing it. Start inviting people to watch the show. They need to see it. But thank you for your support. And for all those who are watching this on the recorded version of it on YouTube, thank you for coming. This is Your Army Now. Okay, so like I said before, we're in week 2. We've talked in the past, last time I hosted, we talked about misconceptions about the Army. So today we're going to focus on Black history, but we're also going to focus on the Army. This is what this is, all right? So like we've discussed, you know, I want to focus on ordinary people doing extraordinary things, all right? It's not just about the first black person do this, the first black person do that. Don't get me wrong, we are going to talk about that, but that's not all the show is about. All right, we're gonna get deep into Black history and the Army and information and get that out there. All right, so we're gonna have a lot of fun. We're gonna keep it educational. We're gonna keep it Army. All right, so we have a great show. This is gonna be good. So my operations sergeant major is gonna talk with us. She's an extraordinary NCO, extraordinary woman, and we're gonna talk to her. And I'll give you her name later. I'm just teasing you with this a little bit. And also, at the end of the show, I want you to try to figure out, there's an accomplishment of Black History Month that we're going to talk about, which is, did you know that the first selfie was invented by a black person? And it's somebody you know. So let's see if you can guess who it is. So later on we'll talk about it. I'll give you some more hints, but we're going to talk about that later. So, all right. Let's go to commercial. This is Your Army Now.
We're out here in Folsom, doing some nice little trails with the future soldiers out there. They're doing pretty good.
There you go. Hurry up the hill. Let's go.
All right. How's that feel? Unknot each other without releasing your hands.
Salute, you're still here. Thank you for sticking around. And if you're new to the channel, this is Your Army Now. And welcome back. Again, we're in February, Black History Month, so we're going to talk about some soldiers that accomplished some things in Black history. And I want to focus on the idea that not everyone who, you know, though we're talking about the first black person to do this, first, we always talk about that, but also we want to talk about, as I mentioned before the break, that it's this, ordinary people doing extraordinary things, right? So a lot of times when you speak to heroes and you say, what made you do that? What made you jump into the water? What made you go into that burning building? A lot of times they're like, I don't know, I just didn't think I was doing anything heroic. I was just doing what I was doing. So that's what I want to focus on today. So the first thing we're going to talk about, I was introduced to this concept from an old reggae song when I was growing up in the 80s in Brooklyn. My parents used to play this song, and and it's called the Buffalo Soldiers. And we're going to talk about them real quick. And yeah, that was my first introduction to it. And I did end up doing research back when I was a kid from that song. My father told me, yeah, that's a real thing. So, Buffalo Soldiers. So these soldiers, originally they were members of the 10th Cavalry Regiment, and then it was officially formed in September 21st, 1866 was when they actually was official, when Congress, though there were other black groups, other black soldiers, like for example, during the Civil War there was a Union Army, that they were all black soldiers. There were also the Colored Troop Regiment, and then there were the 54th Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry, right? They were all black soldiers, but the first time that we had an actual, in the United States Army, official army, was when Congress made it official. During peacetime, it was an all-black regiment, and that's when the Buffalo Soldiers came about. The way they got the nickname originally was during the Civil War, during the fight, not during the Civil War, but during fighting with the Native Americans. The Native Americans would see these soldiers with the hair texture that resembled buffaloes, and that's how they got the name. The Native Americans actually gave them that name because to them it reminded them of buffaloes. So that's the Buffalo Soldiers. Let's move on. This next one is amazing. All right, so born in September 1844. All right, she's the first African American woman to enlist into the United States Army. All right, check this out. This sounds like a movie. I don't know why they haven't done a movie with this yet. All right, she posed as a man. Right, her name is Cathay Williams. I've heard it pronounced Kathy. I've heard it pronounced Cathay. So I apologize if I don't know which one is the actual pronunciation. So I'm gonna go with Cathay because that's how it's spelled. Cathay Williams, and she posed as a man, and her father was a free man. Her mother was a slave, so that makes her status a slave. So she was a slave, and during during slavery in Missouri, when she got older, she decided to join the army. Though there were prohibitions against women joining the army, she posed as a man. She flipped her name. She went by William Cathay, which is brilliant, and she became a soldier. And then she later became a Buffalo Soldier. So today's theme is Buffalo Soldiers, I guess, and she was the first female soldier. I think that story is amazing. All right, so do your research, do more further research beyond this, and you'll find this interesting story. And I'm waiting for Hollywood to do a movie about this. All right, so the next thing, I'm gonna just cut to a video. This is another soldier. His name is Henry O.
Who is Henry O. Flipper? Why is there a dinner and an award celebrating his legacy?
Henry O. Flipper was born a slave in Thomasville, Georgia on March 21st, 1856.
After the Civil War, Flipper started his education at the American Missionary Association and later attended Atlanta University.
Early in 1873, he wrote to his congressman, James Freeman, and requested appointment to West Point.
After some correspondence, Freeman nominated Flipper, who passed the required examinations and was admitted to West Point on July 1st, 1873.
Flipper persevered through 4 years of hardship at West Point, including racial slurs, violence, intimidation, and silencing.
Occasionally, when other black cadets were in attendance at the academy, he had roommates, but mostly he roomed alone.
During his first year, he roomed with the first black cadet at West Point, James Webster Smith, ex-1874, who was expelled for failing physics.
During his final year at West Point, Flipper roomed with Johnson C. Whitaker, ex-1880, who suffered through being beaten, investigated, and was later expelled for also failing physics.
Throughout his 4 years at the academy, no one spoke to Henry Flipper, except in the performance of official duties.
Even though Flipper was ostracized at the military academy, he kept his eyes on the goal of graduation and navigated through the poor treatment he received with grace and dignity.
He was not outspoken like Smith, and he did not raise issues up the chain of command like Whitaker. Flipper felt that the majority of cadets would have treated him with proper politeness, as it becomes a gentleman to do, had it not been for the control that a lower social element, representing the worst of American population, exerted over the rest of the Corps.
Flipper felt that the officers treated him with courtesy and impartiality. At graduation, his perseverance earned him the grudging respect of his classmates, who applauded when he graduated.
Flipper later wrote that as his classmates shook his hand, all signs of ostracism were gone. All felt as if I were worthy of some regard and did not fail to extend it to me.
Flipper ranked 50th out of 76 in his class and excelled in engineering, law, French, and Spanish.
After graduating, Flipper was assigned to the 10th Cavalry, the Buffalo Soldiers. During his service, he was stationed at Oklahoma and Texas.
At Fort Sill, he served as the post engineer and constructed a ditch designed to drain several malarial swamps.
In 1977, his engineering project was designated Flipper's Ditch and is now a National Historic Landmark.
In 1881, at Fort Davis, where Flipper was the acting assistant quartermaster and acting commissary of subsistence, he was charged with embezzlement and conduct unbecoming an officer and a gentleman, and court-martialed.
He was acquitted of embezzlement, but found guilty of conduct unbecoming and subsequently dismissed from the service.
After leaving the military, he continued to work as an engineer. Later, he served in the Department of Justice as a special agent for the Court of Private Land Claims.
Subsequently, he held several governmental jobs. He was a special assistant to the Secretary of the Interior, working with the Alaskan Engineering Commission, and an aide to the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations.
He wrote several books, including his autobiography, The Colored Cadet at West Point, his memoirs, Black Frontiersman, The Memoirs of Henry O. Flipper, First Black Graduate of West Point, and Spanish and Mexican Land Laws, New Spain and Mexico, for the Department of Justice.
Throughout the remainder of his life, Flipper worked to have his name cleared and his military rank restored.
Henry Flipper died in Georgia in 1940 at the age of 84. In 1976, the Army reviewed his case and posthumously awarded an honorable discharge backdated to June 30th, 1882. In 1999, President Clinton pardoned Henry O. Flipper.
To put Flipper's time at West Point into perspective, the first black cadets entered West Point in 1870. From 1870 to 1889, 23 black cadets were nominated, 12 were admitted, and 3 graduated.
Henry O. Flipper was the first in 1877, followed by John H. Alexander in 1887 and Charles Young in 1889.
The Henry O. Flipper Dinner has been a tradition since 1977, started on the centennial of Flipper's graduation.
The Flipper Award is given annually to a graduating cadet who demonstrates the highest qualities of leadership, self-discipline, and perseverance in the face of unusual difficulties.
Henry O. Flipper. So now you know. All right, so we're going to go to commercial real quick, and when we come back, we're going to talk to Sergeant Major Anderson, and we're going to get to know her better. But before we do this, I want to continue our little tease. So earlier I mentioned that the first selfie was invented by a black man. Also, it was invented by a black man soldier, a black soldier. Again, this may be someone you know. Do you know who it was who did our first selfie? This is Your Army Now. We'll be right back.
DC approaching. Go, 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 go.
There are those who see the challenges facing the nation and say, send me. They fight for country. They fight for honor. They fight to win. Do you have what it takes? Find out at goarmy.com/warriors.
And we're back. We're back. Thank you for joining us. I have the pleasure and honor of speaking with the Operations Sergeant Major of NorCal Recruiting Battalion, Miss Sergeant Major LaVon Anderson. Welcome to our show.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yes, this is a living legend.
I don't know about all that.
You know, Black history in the making, right? Live Black history as we speak. All right, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Sergeant Major LaVon Michelle Anderson. I joined the Army in 1991, November 1991, during, actually it was Veterans Day weekend I joined the Army.
Oh, okay.
And went off to basic training in AIT. I went to basic training at Fort Jackson, and I went to AIT at Fort Lee.
Okay. What was the atmosphere like as far as for back then, you know, as far as females in the Army?
Well, at the time when I went to basic training, there was only all females in the barracks at the time. By the time I got to AIT, they had integrated it to, you know, males and females.
Okay, so you reached the rank that I wish to reach, which is the highest enlisted rank in the Army, and which I commend you for. When you originally joined, do you see any differences? You know, has things gotten better, worse? What's your opinion about the way the Army has evolved since you first enlisted?
Oh, well, the Army has evolved in a lot of ways. You know, there's still a tremendous amount of opportunities for young men and women. I think the biggest evolution has probably been female soldiers being in more specialty MOS, combat MOSs.
Okay. MOS, so just for the people out there who don't know, explain MOS.
Well, the military occupation specialty.
Right, basic jobs.
Yeah, it has pretty much broadened for females to do combat jobs.
So since you've been in, you've had more than one MOS, correct?
Yes.
So can you tell us a little about your experiences?
Sure. My first experience when I joined in 1991, I came in as a automated logistics specialist, which is actually a supply specialist, basically. My job was basically to ensure that all the supplies were in a unit, make sure that we did proper inventory for a unit. So it entailed a lot of technical things.
So soldiers that are out there in the field, you got to make sure that they got
Had all the equipment, aviation parts ordered, and things of that nature.
Okay, that's good. And now what do you do?
Now I am Army recruiter for life.
See that? That's good. That's good. So if there was one thing that you would like to say or speak to, a message you want to give to somebody who's considering joining the military, or maybe a student, a parent of a student, what would you say to that person?
Well, I would simply say that follow your dreams, follow your heart. Most importantly, know that the Army is a great opportunity for you to succeed at any level or at anything you want to do in life. And the things that are constant with me is, you know, I grew up in a large family. I had 7 sisters and 2 brothers. And 2 things that my parents always taught me was, 1, family first. I got that from my mother. And 2, the work ethic that my father had. You know, he had a 6th grade education. He would wake up every day, make sure that we were in school, make sure we had food, make sure we had a roof over our heads. And that determination and hard work for my father, it grew into the person I am today. With that, along with the values and the things that I've learned in the Army, has made me who I am today. So I just tell people, if you want to go for it, and just have a positive, open mind, and know that whatever you want to do in life, it's possible. Because I'm here, and I came from very humble beginnings. So just remain humble, and you can succeed in anything you want to do in life.
Black history in the making, people. It's beautiful. Thank you very much. I know you have Sergeant Major things to do. So we're going to go to a commercial, but before we go, I just want to remind you that when we come back, we're going to have that answer for you. Who was the first black soldier to invent the selfie? We'll be right back. This is your Army Now.
DC approaching. Go.
There are those who see the challenges facing the nation and say, send me. They fight for country. They fight for honor. They fight to win. Do you have what it takes? Find out at goarmy.com/warriors.
We're back. Thank you, Sergeant Major, for that interview. I appreciate your time. She's off doing Sergeant Major things, so she's Sergeant Majoring right now. Yes, I turned it into a verb, Sergeant Majoring. All right, anyway, so our question: who was the first black soldier to invent the selfie? Do you recognize this man? Look closely. Look closely. He was young in this picture. I know. Look closely. Yep, it's Colin Powell. The first selfie is minted by Black man. This is your Army Now. See you tomorrow.